Right now, tier lists are very popular. At Pro Guides, we offer you a tier list every week for the best possible champions that you can play right now for climbing and improving your rank, and these do well because it's easily watchable and consumable. Sometimes, you just want to know which champions to play and what to ban. But what if you didn't? What if you wanted to know which champions not to play? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Let's do a reverse tier list. Let's go over the worst champions in League of Legends that even the one-tricks are avoiding, and when you see on the enemy team, chances are it's going to be an easy win for you. Before we begin, we need to get something straight. Some picks in this video are not inherently bad or impossible to climb with. As a small spoiler, Wukong is in this video, but that's not to say that you cannot climb with Wukong, or that his win rate is pathetically bad, because Wukong's win rate isn't that bad. Here's the thing. Why would you play Wukong when you can play Talon? That logic is the basis for this video. Talon is an S tier solo queue champion at the moment. He has an insanely good win rate for a very long time, has a higher play rate, does well in the chaos of solo queue, and has plenty of one tricks in Challenger. That's what makes him better than Wukong. In theory, none of the champions on this list are so bad that they cannot win some games, and because Riot has been so much better about that in recent seasons. Mostly every champion in Season 9 is viable to some extent. They've reworked every champion by now who were complete troll picks in the past, such as Urgot, Evelynn, and Galio. Anyway, let's jump into the worst champions in the game right now. Starting this list off, let's monkey around with Wukong. Honestly, this champ is a huge balance nightmare, because Wukong really isn't that bad if you get a lead and use it. His burst is through the roof, and he's a bruiser that has assassin levels of damage with a great teamfight. The other thing is that he's one of the easiest champions in the game to play. Once you get a lead on Wukong, you W in, EQR, and spin to win. You do that combo over and over again until you win. There isn't much else to his kit, and that's why Riot had to nerf him. Do you remember when Wukong was OP and assassin items were super good, Electrocute gave you more burst, and Wukong was an unstoppable full burst nuclear one-shotting king? You could even go Stormrazor for more damage, and Caps even locked it in twice.
Yeah, adaptation for Mist would say we'll get the chance, won't get to respond too much to the last pick.
I want to see what Caps picks here. Or
Oh,
is it gonna happen?
Oh, let's go! Oh, League of Legends, baby. This is why when I was memeing with pros yesterday about this Wukong, when people kept giving me weird looks, this is real, isn't it?
They had to put a stop to this after his win rate in mid lane was nearing 60%. And ever since then, he's been pretty bad. His weak laning phase keeps him out of viability in higher elo top and mid lane, and his lackluster jungle clear and vulnerability to getting invaded means that he's a weaker jungler than he's ever been before. Because of this, Wukong will be getting a rework fairly soon, and this rework does look promising for him, as he has some nice new mechanics. Wukong right now is a D tier top laner, an F tier jungler, and a D tier mid laner. With Graves, he was an incredibly dominant and oppressive jungle champion after his rework in Season 6. He could run all over the game and 1v9 no problem. He was really tanky, had insane burst, and had almost no weaknesses given that his clear was so healthy and so quick. You were kinda like a range master Yi because you farmed all game, carried with 300 CS at 25 minutes, and back then, lethality items were quite good and you were super bursty if you wanted to go for a burst build, or you could build more tanky with Phantom Dancer, Death's Dance, Black Cleaver, and Bloodthirster. The biggest issue with the champion is his interaction with the jungle camps, as he knocks them back by auto-attacking. The champ isn't really allowed to be balanced or buffed because when he's good, he's way too good as a jungler. He has been nerfed a bunch of times, and he doesn't really offer anything unique. A lot of the ranged junglers are just better than him at the moment, because what does this champ do that other junglers can't just do better now? He also has pretty poor ganks in a gank heavy meta, while Gragas, Sejuani, Lee Sin, and Hecarim are all running over the early game and ganking non-stop. He's stuck farming because his ganks suck without red buff. Graves is a D tier jungler at best, and even one tricks who abused this champ in the past, like Tarzan, don't even touch this champion anymore. After his changes and rework on patch 9.12, Ryze has been struggling to say the least. One of his main issues actually doesn't have anything to do with what is intended, rather what is unintended. On the current version of Ryze, he is extremely buggy. Thankfully, Riot is confirmed to be trying to fix some of these and work through these bugs. After the removal of his shield, higher early game mana costs, and the removal of the guaranteed root on his W, it's left Ryze mains and pros at a loss. Here's the thing, despite his win rate in lower elo brackets going up a little bit, in terms of what the pros think, he's absolutely gutted. Check this out. We all know that the pros love Ryze, and he's been a pick or ban in competitive play for years upon years. They love his safety, his reliability, and his scaling. Okay, so on patch 9.11, before the changes, Ryze was at an 87% presence in top 5 regions. Presence just means how often they were picked or banned. 87% presence means that he was picked or banned in 87% of all games. On patch 9.12, Ryze's presence went down. By how much, you ask? Well, how about to almost completely gone? Ryze on this patch is at a 1% presence, having only 1 ban and no picks. No one, not even pros, are playing Ryze. My hope is that with the bug fixes he will become playable once again, but for now, he is an F tier mid and top laner. For a while, Galio has been in a weird spot. It seems like every month there's a new way to play this champ. At first, Galio was a full tank top laner. Do you remember Courage of the Colossus and the 3 Doran ring strategy for top lane, where champions like Gragas, Galio, and Nautilus would go 3 Doran's rings, never run out of mana, and AP tanks were the king of top lane? Well, back then, Galio was insanely broken and did this the best. He received a bunch of changes, leading up to some changes that he got on patch 7.21 a little bit later. After this patch, Galio was so powerful as an AP burst mid laner that he had to be hotfixed immediately, and for a while, he was mostly a mid laner building AP with things like Protobelt, Luden's Echo, and Deathcap. Finally, after some more changes to his kit, it was discovered that once again, Galio could be used somewhere else, this time as a support. Full tank Galio support became the best engaged support in the game, and he was completely rendering picks like Alistar and Leona useless due to him just doing their job but better. He was nerfed and changed again and again, and now he doesn't have a place in the meta. Along with several other champions on this list, he's looking to receive some changes, and these should in theory bring him back into the mid lane as a solid AP champion once again. The huge change in nerf here is the fact that you won't be able to do a flash taunt anymore. But I believe this change is necessary. That way Riot can finally buff him in other ways. Maybe that combo was just a little bit too good. Galio is D tier in every role that he plays. Oh boy, let's talk about Kalista. So this champion is a huge problem. Like a huge problem. They cannot and will not buff this champion, for a good reason, because Kalista has game-breaking and meta-breaking issues that they've not been able to get right. The first and most obvious one is her passive, and back when she was released, it used to launch her just as far backward as it does forward. It had double the range. This one gimmick alone allowed Kalista to be the single best ADC in the game at kiting, and there have been times where Kalista was 100% pick or ban priority in competitive play. She has this whole Oathsworn thing that when paired with a good support such as a challenger support, they become a 2v8 kiting machine. There is of course a huge drawback to playing Kalista, which is that she gets countered by tons of armor and attack speed reducers such as Frozen Heart and Nasus's Wither, and the longer that the game goes on, the more useless she becomes. She's been changed and nerfed at least a dozen times at this point, but she still receives competitive play to this day simply because of how well she does in the right hands. However, she's far from viable as a consistent ADC that you can play in ranked solo queue for climbing, and for that reason, Kalista is F tier for ADC. This is one of the champions on this list that I would say is arguable and somewhat fine, as Lucian's current state is nowhere near Kalista's. The problem though with Lucian right now is that he's way too snowball reliant. He is 100% required to smash his lane and win the game before 20 minutes to get that FF15. He is fantastic in lane and has a decent mid game, but when it comes to late game, everything, literally everything, is better than he is. His best and most consistent build throughout the years, which has been Blade of the Ruin King into Black Cleaver, has been nerfed so many times at this point it's hard to even count. There are some crit Lucians out there that can scale okay with an Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge focus build, but even Essence Reaver was recently nerfed. There are other strong laning phase ADCs that don't fall off nearly as hard, such as Draven, Ashe, and Misfortune, and Ashe and MF are much easier to play and execute. If you want to play something that is good in lane, but is also skill expressive for an ADC, I would recommend learning Draven or even Jhin. I would say that Jhin is definitely a little bit easier to play than Lucian, and isn't as good in lane, but that triple Infinity Edge Jhin build seems to be A tier at the moment, and looks pretty fun. I think Lucian's one saving grace right now is the mid lane role, and because a lot of people are building team comps with AP bottom laners and AP top laners such as Karma, Karthus, Kennen, Vladimir, and Lissandra, it shouldn't screw your team comp over too hard. Lucian is probably C tier or B tier mid lane, but C tier ADC for sure. After Kayle and Morgana's rework, Kayle became the single best champion in the game. As soon as players figured out the best rune to take was Kleptomancy, due to it giving you the chance to get to your late game items much quicker, and that skill elixir allowing you to hit your power spikes earlier than intended, she became an unstoppable carry. She had around a 55 or 56% win rate, and honestly, wasn't even that bad in the laning phase. She scaled to being the best level 16 champion we had ever seen, along with Kassadin. That interaction with Kleptomancy giving skill elixirs was removed, and it made it so when Kayle gets them, she still has to reach level 16 before she gets her upgrade. She was directly hit with big nerfs, and now doesn't really hold a stance in the meta. She seems to take far too long to scale, has no pressure in lane as her laning phase, which was already bad, was nerfed even harder, and because she lacks the ability to help your team contest anything in the early game, such as scuttle crabs and jungle invades, she falls pretty flat. One build for Kayle you might want to try out though is this new Manamune build. It's fairly new and seems to do quite well. It has a good win rate. We recently saw this adjustment for Kaisa players, and I can see why this is okay for Kayle as well, but the lack of attack speed in your first item is pretty rough. Right now, Kayle is a C tier top laner at best. On this list, Yasuo is probably the most playable and best champion. When played well, Yasuo is a B tier mid laner and a B tier bottom lane carry. His kit is obviously overloaded and has everything to be a good solo queue champion. There is no reason why Yas should ever be one of the worst champs in the game, because he's one of Riot's poster childs anyway. He's like the coolest champ in the game. So, why does Yasuo make our list today? Well, win wall at the moment is super buggy. Skill shots are literally going right through it. This is not just a meme or a joke from the Yasuo mains community. They aren't just crybabies, because I tried this champ myself and I do play a lot of Yasuo, and what's happening right now is that skill shots that are already in flight are quite literally going right through the win wall. An example would be if Lux throws her Q and your win wall isn't already cast before the animation finishes, there's more than a 50% chance that it will go right through and CC you. This bug while playing Yasuo is incredibly frustrating, but I guess Yasuo players have it coming all these years of the champ being frustrating to play against. I guess everybody is just getting their revenge now. It's hard because as a Yasuo player, this is constantly baiting me now, because I know in my brain it should be blocking that skill shot, so I don't have to flash it. It's not going to kill me, but my muscle memory is baiting me to think that I can go for a play, only to be killed and stopped by my own ability screwing me over. Because of this one bug alone, Yasuo is placed in C tier until this is fixed. Swain's rework was successful in making him a viable champion in competitive play. He was never truly broken or overpowered, but he was quite obnoxious to lane against and was a strong team fighter. He saw a couple of nerfs after his rework was introduced to the game, and players took a while to finally figure out what runes they wanted to take. If you went top lane, Grasp of the Undying is actually quite nice due to it giving you a strong laning phase. He's fine with Arcane Comet, he's good with Summon Airy, he's great with Electrocute, and for a while players were even abusing Unsealed Spellbook Swain. The phase rush build seemed to be the most consistent, but ever since a big meta shift towards early and mid game fights, Swain really hasn't been that viable, and it's kinda hard to say and pinpoint what the exact reasons are for that. I think one big thing is that he doesn't have a solidified role within a team. He doesn't really do enough damage to 1v9 and carry, but he's also not tanky enough to be a good frontliner for your team. Sometimes these hybrids of carry and tank, otherwise known as the off-tank or bruiser class, struggle to find their place within a meta that's so black and white. You really do want hard carries who deal a crap load of damage right now, such as a Jinx, but you also want super beefy tanks to stand in front of you, build Ziggs Convergence and Knight's Vow that can tank a ton of damage, such as Aftershock Leona. Honestly, Swain doesn't fit into either of these categories right now, and as with a lot of these champions on this list, he's looking to receive a big rework soon and big changes on the PvE, which I am excited for because I enjoy playing Swain. Right now, he's pretty much a D tier mid laner and a C tier top laner at best. Last but not least, Ziggs falls flat in the meta right now for a couple of reasons. One of them being straight up, he is worse at his job than other champions. Ziggs when he's good is known for two main things, poke and wave clear. If you played back in Season 3 and Season 4, you would remember the days when Ziggs was actually OP as heck. I know that sounds weird to say now in Season 9, but there was literally a time where Ziggs was hyper broken, S+++ tier. The reason was because no matter how well you played in lane, no matter how well your team played the early game, no matter how well you secured objectives, pushed, got Baron, every dragon, had a 10k gold lead, Ziggs stalled out the game infinitely. Ziggs forced every game to be a 30-minute game simply because his wave clear was too strong. You could never push against him. He could take any game that you lost early game and turn it into a winnable game just because he made everybody play for late game. He is also a fantastic poke champion, but he doesn't even do that job that well right now. Ezreal and Lux are the most prominent and best poke champions at the game in the moment, and if your goal is to play a scaling long-range mage, Xerath and Vel'Koz do that job better than what he does right now. Unless you're a Ziggs one-trick or a Ziggs enthusiast, there aren't any situations that should make you say, oh, Ziggs is good here, because chances are that exact reason could be used to say that Lux, Vel'Koz, or Xerath are also by nature good in this situation. That's part of what makes Ziggs a D tier mid laner. Anyway guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this list today. The big thing here is that a lot of these champions are actually receiving reworks soon, which is pretty cool. So I might make an updated version of this list if you guys want, or my thoughts are to make an all-time one. So let me know what you think about the idea of maybe doing an all-time worst champions list, just how I did the all-time best champions list. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.